Hello students, welcome to the class. So today we will be starting our new chapter, Organic Chemistry, some basic principle and technique. So this would be the first chapter for your organic chemistry part, and today we will be covering section 8.1, 8.2 in our first theory part. This is the disclaimer. Now, in this class, my objective would be to look at the reasons for the tetravalency of carbon and for the shape of the organic molecule. So this tetravalency of carbon comes directly from your hybridization. Now you should have a little idea about the chemical bonding chapter where we have dealt with this hybridization theory. So this class will be mainly comprised of an introduction part, and we will also relate the tetravalency of carbon with some questions. If I talk about the specific sections of the NCERT that we are going to cover, then first would be your introduction, which is 8.1. Then will be your tetravalency of carbon, which is responsible for the shape of the organic compound, in which we will be seeing some compounds related to carbon. So, which type of compound? So, they can be saturated, unsaturated, double bonded, single bonded. So, all of those will be dealt today. Regarding question, so we will see the exercise question 8.1 in this. So, let's begin with the introductory part. If I talk about the development of the organic chemistry, then a very mysterious theory was developed in that time to explain the organic chemistry. What was that mysterious theory? So it is related to vital force. So first of all, what is organic chemistry? It is the study of hydrocarbons. Now in this term, we have two atoms, which are hydrogen and carbon. So your chemical compound is exclusively containing carbon and hydrogen. Now, it is not necessary that if your compound is containing a carbon and a hydrogen, then it must be organic compound. There are several examples where we have carbon and hydrogen in the compound, but still it is not an organic molecule. Now, talking about the theory which was given by Berzelius, it was named as vital force theory. It said that if you want to synthesize an organic compound, you cannot do it by yourself, or you can say it cannot be man-made. So there is a mysterious force named as vital force, and it was required to build every organic molecule, and it is related to life specific energy. Means, suppose you are considering the production of amino acids in your body. So your body is the one which is responsible for this production. So it was said that you need a life specific energy, means your body can only produce, or some other living being body can only produce this organic molecule. It was not possible to synthesize this organic molecule in your lab, unlike your inorganic compound. So this was the theory behind the organic chemistry in the start of this branch. But later on, this balloon of vital force theory was bursted when we got our first synthetically produced organic compound. Now, what was that? It was urea. So, urea is the first organic compound to be synthesized in the lab, and it was synthesized by Frederick Wöhler. But how it was synthesized? It was synthesized from ammonium cyanide. Now, the question is that, do you know the formula of ammonium cyanide? So you must remember this reaction along with the formulas of urea and ammonium cyanide, because in most of the questions you will see that you are not given with the molecular formula of urea. Instead of that, you are just given with the word urea, and the next part of the question requires the formula of the urea. So you must remember, because it's a common name for NH2CONH2. We are now not in the situation to deal with the structure of NH2CONH2. We will look on to that. We will see how do we represent this NH2COOH2. So there are several methods in organic chemistry to represent our molecule. We'll look on to that. But for now, at least you should know this formula. Similarly, for ammonium cyanate, we have this NH4 plus NCO minus. So it is a type of salt where the cation is NH4 plus and the anion is NCO minus. When you heat this, it decomposes to give you urea. Got it? So this urea was the first man-made organic molecule which was made by Frederick Wöhler. So after this, lakhs and I would say millions and trillions of organic compounds were being synthesized in the lab. So we now need a much more modern definition to explain our organic chemistry. So we said that, okay, organic chemistry is the branch of science which deals with carbon compounds. And in addition to that, means in addition to your carbon and hydrogen, your organic compound can also contain some some heteroatoms like your oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, halogen. Now, what are halogens? So you have fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. So these are all halogens. So apart from this carbon and hydrogen, your organic compound can also contain these given elements. Right? I hope this point is clear to you. And this can be well versified in your example of urea as well. You can see that apart from carbon and hydrogen, we have nitrogen and oxygen present in this organic compound. Clear? Okay. Now, moving on to the next part, which is carbon's tetravalency. Now we know that we have this organic molecule, but we are much more concerned about its structure, that how it looks. What is the spatial arrangement of this organic compound with respect to the atom? So for that, we shall see the hybridization part. Now, the carbon has a very unique property to form multiple covalent bond, and it can form long length of carbon chain. So this property is known as catenation. We have already seen this catenation property in the class 10th, and we will try to explain this bonding in carbon with the help of hybridization. So first, you should know that carbon has an atomic number of 6. So if you want to write the electronic configuration of carbon, then how would you write it? For the ground state, if I write it, it will be 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py1. So from the ground state, we can see that two of the atomic orbitals are partially filled, which is 2px and 2py. So at first glance, you can consider that this ground state should be a divalent one, or the carbon should be a divalent one. But you know it's not true. According to the octet rule, which is very harshly followed by this lighter elements, they must have 8 electrons in their outermost shell. But if you add only 2 electrons here to the second subshell, then we would have 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is 6. So it would not be stable. So we need another state which can show a tetravalency, because we have only 4 electrons and we need 4 more. Therefore, the carbon moves to the excited state. How does it move? By promoting its 2s electron. Initially, you can see in the ground state, we have 2 electrons in the 2s. But upon excitation, one of the electron of 2s is being promoted to the 2pz. Now the new configuration, excited state configuration, is showing a tetravalency where your 2s, 2px, 2py, 2pz can each acquire 1 electron. I hope this is clear to you. Now, why the electron is promoted to 2px, 2pz only? because it was the vacant orbital available for the excitation with the lowest energy gap. Got it? So this is the reason for the tetravalency. Can we represent the same thing with the help of a diagram, orbital diagram? Yes, we can do it. So since your excited state has 4 unpaired electron, we can say that your carbon is a tetravalent atom. How do we represent it? So here is a box representation of that. So first of all, the carbon atom is in the ground state. You can see it has 1s2, then 2s2, and then 2px1 and 2py1. After the excitation, one of the electron of 2s is moving on to the 2pz. So now the new excited state configuration is 1s2, 2s1, 2px1, 2py1, and 2pz1. To do the bonding according to hybridization, we have to build hybridized orbital. What are hybridized orbital? So they are a set of orbital which are having equal energy. Now, if they are having equal energy, we have to write them in a adjacent manner. You can see I have correlated this 2s along with the 2p to make this sp3 hybrid orbital, in which we have 2s orbital and 3p orbital. Got it? So this is basically, after excitation, this is basically your hybridization. And which kind of hybridization? sp3 hybridization, achieved by hybridizing the s subshell and the p subshell. All of the three orbitals of the p subshell. I hope now we are in the position of telling that carbon has a tetravalency of 4, and this can be well explained on the basis of hybridization, in which first we are doing the excitation and then we are doing the mixing of atomic orbital to create the new set of sp3 hybridized orbitals. And this all 4 orbitals, which is a part of sp3 hybridized orbital, will have same energy. They are degenerate, and this is the basic property of any hybridized orbital. Moving on to the next part. So we are already now aware about this tetravalency. Now we'll see that what is the result or what is the impact on the shape of a carbon due to its tetravalency. To understand that, we will look on the effect of hybridization on geometry. So there are 3 hybridizations which are possible. What are those? We have sp3, we have sp2, and we have sp hybridization. So these are the 3 hybridizations which are shown by your carbon. So remember this is very, very important slide. And according to that, we can decide that what is the shape, what is the angle, approximate angle I would say, and what are the number of groups attached to the central atom. So from this table, you can clearly say that if your carbon is sp3 hybridized, then it will have 4 groups attached to the carbon, and the shape acquired by it would be a tetrahedron, right? Where in the case of perfect tetrahedron, you will see an angle of 109.5 degrees. So this is the ideal case. You can see a small deviation in the case of tetrahedron carbon in some cases due to the presence of unsymmetrical environment, but the ideal case says that you should have an angle of 109.5 degrees. What would be the first example of it? The most common example, it will be methane. So can you say that methane is an ideal condition? Yes, because all the 4 groups are same. So if all the 4 groups are same, then it will acquire a perfect tetrahedron having an angle of 109.5 degrees. Moving on to the next, which is sp2 hybridization. Now in this case, we see that the groups which are attached to the central atom are 3. So this may create a confusion in your mind because we are not writing the examples in an expanded manner. For that, I have set up a question for you. So we will see that how easily we can predict the hybridization. The first way is that you can just look at the number of groups. So if it is 3, you will name it as sp2, 4, sp3, and 2 sp. Now moving on with this shape, which is related to sp2, we have this trigonal planar shape. In this, a perfect trigonal planar will have an bond angle of 120 degrees. What can be the example of this? We can take the example of ethene, which formula is C2H4, in which each carbon will contain 2 hydrogens. Moving on to the last hybridization, which is sp. In this case, we have only 2 groups attached to the carbon and the shape is completely linear, where the bond angle is considered to be 180 degrees. What can be the example of this? We can take ethine, where each carbon will contain 1 hydrogen and the type of bonding between the 2 carbons would be a triple bond. So we'll look on to that with some examples. Remember, we can also predict with the help of bond, but that is not more accurate. In some cases, you will see that although the bond is double, it will show a sp hybridization, right? So it is not good to assign hybridization on the basis of what? On the basis of double bond or triple bond. But in general, we can say that sp3 will have only single bonded carbon, sp2 will have double bonded carbon, and sp will have a triple bonded carbon, right? So this is the general idea. But remember, as I said, never consider hybridization on the basis of the groups that are attached to the main carbon. Sorry, on the basis of the number of double bond or triple bond, right? Okay. Moving on to the effect of hybridization. We have seen that what is the reason behind the tetravalency, what is the impact of tetravalency. So it acquires a tetrahedron shape for sp3, then a trigonal planar shape for sp2 and a linear shape for sp. But beside that shape, the hybridization has also impact on some other properties. Let us get a quick look on that. So hybridization is very significantly impacting the bond properties, especially if I talk about the bond length and the bond enthalpy or bond strength. So they are correlated. So I've written them as same, but they are, of course, they are different terms, but they are impacted by the hybridization in the same way. Greater is your bond strength, greater will be your bond enthalpy. So can we predict the bond length and bond enthalpy, or can we compare the bond length and bond enthalpy of 2 or 3 differently hybridized carbon? Yes. So that can be done only alone on the basis of S character. Let's see how. So if your carbon is having a greater S character, then it will show various properties. So those properties are related to orbital penetration, bond strength, bond length, electronegativity. Now, one more important thing. You should know how to calculate the S character or P character in a given hybridization. It's very simple. Suppose I am telling that a carbon is sp hybridized. It means that your whole orbital is kind of distributed. The hybridized orbital is kind of distributed between 2 atomic orbital s and p equally. So the s character will be 50 and the p character will be 50. In the case of sp2, now we have 3 atomic orbitals. So your total character, if you consider it as 100, then it will be distributed equally among these 3 atomic orbitals. So 1s and 2p. So therefore, each atomic orbital will have 33.33%. But if I talk about p subshell specifically, or the percentage of p, then we have 2p orbitals. Therefore, 33.33 will come from each, resulting in a 66.66 contribution to the overall hybridized orbital. So we can say that greater is the number of p orbital used to make up the hybridized orbital, greater is the what? Greater is a p character. And same thing can be said for other atomic orbitals. Now coming back to our discussion, if you are seeing that your hybridized orbital is having a greater s character, then first thing you should realize is that your hybrid orbital will be more penetrated toward the nucleus. Why? It is due to the greater penetration of the s orbital. We know it very well from the discussion of atomic structure that your s orbital, due to its symmetrical shape and spherical shape, it is much more penetrated towards the center. And if your hybridized orbital is getting a greater s character, so the same will be applied to your hybridized orbital as well. So it will be also much more penetrated toward the center. Moving on to the next thing, which is bond strength. As a result of greater penetration, it will always form stronger bond, because greater penetration means greater proximity to the nucleus, and greater proximity to the nucleus means greater force of attraction. If the bond strength is strong, then we know that bond strength is inversely proportional to the length. Now, if bond strength is greater, then we can say that bond length will be shorter, because bond strength and bond length are inversely proportional. Shorter bonds have greater strength. Moving on to the last part, which I would say is the most important one, is the electronegativity. So if your hybridized orbital is having a greater electronegativity, that means it must be having greater s character, right? Again, this thing is coming from the penetration of the s, right? Due to this greater penetration, it has a greater electronegativity. Remember this, if you are asked to arrange 3 differently hybridized carbon in the order of electronegativity, then the one with the higher s character will have a higher electronegativity. Then what we can say, that sp, which is having a 50% s character, will have the highest electronegativity. Then comes our sp2, which has 33.33% s character, and lastly the least electronegative will be sp3, which will have a s character of 25%, where 25% for the each atomic orbital, but we have 3 p orbitals, so that will contribute to 75% p character and 25% s character. I hope now you must be clear about this s character importance. Got it? If this part is clear, now we can do some questions. So this is question number 1 for you. So where we have to decide the hybridization for the given 5 compounds. For each carbon you have to decide. Your time to solve the question starts now. Just write the hybridization of each carbon in each compound above the respective carbon, and then we will discuss the answer. So you have approximately 1 minute to solve it. It's very easy. I have already told you that how to do it with the help of groups attached. I will tell you another way to do it. We'll see onto it, but you can also do it on the basis of number of groups attached. You have 30 more seconds. Okay, your time is up. Let us look on the first compound, which is CH2CO. If I talk about CH2CO, another compound, there is a very general idea to do it. So first would be the number of groups. So that would be an easy option. In place of that, you can also count the sigma bond to assign the hybridization. It's very simple. If you have 4 sigma bond for the carbon, then it will be sp3 hybridized. If it is 3, it will be sp2 hybridized. And if it is 2, it will be sp2 hybridized, sp hybridized, right? So these are the 3 ways you can decide the hybridization for a given carbon. So let us solve the given compound with the help of this normal categorization. So first comes our CH2CO. If I talk about the carbon number 1, so we are designated with this carbon 1 and carbon 2. You can look at the first carbon here. Then you can clearly say that the carbon number 1 will have 3 sigma bonds. 2 are with your hydrogen and 1 is with your next adjacent carbon. How we are saying that we have only one sigma bond? Because although you are looking at a double bond, but the next bond after sigma is your pi. Therefore, there is only one sigma bond in the C double bond C. So there is a total of 3 sigma bond. We can say that our hybridization will be sp2. Can we do the same with the help of the groups attached? Yes. This first carbon is having 2 hydrogen and 1 carbon. So there are total number of 3 groups. So 3 groups means sp2 hybridization. Got it? Moving on to the next carbon of the same compound, which is carbon number 2. So this carbon number 2 has 2 sigma bonds. What are those? So one is between the 2 carbon, right? So that is clear from the previous discussion as well. And the other one is with the oxygen. So we can say that we have a total of 2 sigma bonds. So the hybridization will be sp here. You can again categorize the same hybridization on the basis of number of groups. The number 2 carbon is having 2 groups, which are carbon and oxygen. Got it? So this is your first compound where we are having sp2 hybridization for the first carbon and sp hybridization for the second carbon. Moving on to the next example, which is CH3, CH2, CH3, CH and CH2. If I look at the first carbon here, the first carbon is having 3 sigma bonds with hydrogen and 1 with the carbon number 2. Therefore, a total of 4 sigma bonds. And from this part, we can easily say that the carbon 1 is sp3 hybridized. Moving on to the next carbon of the same compound. So, the C2 carbon of the given compound will have 3 sigma bonds. What are those? So, one is obviously between the carbon 2 and carbon 1. Then, second is between the carbon and hydrogen. And third is between the carbon 2 and carbon 3. How? Because one of the bond is pi and one is sigma. So there are total of 3 carbons. There are total of 3 sigma bonds. So we can say that the given carbon is sp2 hybridized. Then moving on to the third carbon of the same compound. So the third carbon of the same compound, if you see, it has 3 sigma bonds where 2 are from hydrogen and 1 is between the C3 and C2. Right? So we can say that this compound is having carbon 1 as sp3 hybridized, carbon 2 as sp2 hybridized, and carbon 3 also as sp2 hybridization. Then moving on to the next compound, which is CH3, then C, then CH3, where the C2 carbon is having a double bond. So I have expanded this third structure, and rather than writing it as CH3 whole twice, I have put this thing on the both side of the second carbon. Further, we can write it for the C1 carbon that it has 4 sigma bonds, where 3 are from the hydrogen and 1 is with the carbon number 2. Therefore, its hybridization will be sp3. Coming on to the next carbon of the third compound. So, this carbon is having a double bonded with oxygen. So, 2 are with the carbons which I have named as C1 and C1 because these 2 carbons are almost identical and they will have the same hybridization as well. And the third is with the oxygen, right? So we can say that this carbon is sp2 hybridized. Got it? So what we can say about this compound, that both of the carbons on the either side of the carbon containing oxygen are sp3 hybridized and the middle carbon is sp2 hybridized. So we are done with the first 3 compounds. Now talking about the fourth compound, which is CH2CHCN. This compound has again 3 carbons, in which the first carbon is having 2 sigma bond. How? You can see it very clearly that we have a C triple bond N. But out of these 3 bonds, only one is sigma, other 2 are pi. So one from the Cn and one from the Cc, which is between carbon 1 and carbon 2. So we can say that this will have a hybridization of sp because it has 2 sigma bonds only. Moving on to the second carbon of the same compound. What about it? So this carbon number 2 will have 3 sigma bond. How? So we can see that the carbon 2 and carbon 1 is having 1 sigma bond. In addition to that, it has 1 CH bond. Plus, between C2 and C3, there is a double bond, out of which 1 will be sigma. So there are total of 3 sigma bonds. We can say that its hybridization is sp2. Moving on to the last carbon, what we can say? The C3 carbon, it is having how much number of sigma bond? It will be 3. So 2 are coming from the H and 1 is coming between C3 and C2. So the hybridization will be sp2. Now, if you are done with this 4 compound, I will tell you about 5th compound in a short way. I hope you can do it easily. So this is your 5th compound, which is benzene, right? This benzene will have all the 6 carbon present as sp2 hybridization. Now I'm leaving this as your homework to you, that what are the sigma bonds and pi bonds present here and which groups are attached to it. You can do it. It's very easy. Here I have not represented your hydrogen, right? Only the carbons are represented here. You can just expand this. Now we can summarize all of those which we have studied today. Starting from the carbon's tetravalency hybridization, we can say that carbon has an ability to form 4 covalent bond, maximum of 4 covalent bond, which is called as tetravalency, and it is explained on the basis of hybridization. Then what is the impact of this hybridization? First is, it affects your bond properties like your orbital penetration, bond strength, bond length, bond energy and all. And this whole impact can be explained on the basis of S character. So greater is the S character, greater will be penetration, higher will be your bond strength, shorter will be bond, and higher will be its electronegativity. We can just say it that due to greater penetration of the S orbital, the orbital is the hybridized orbital which is formed as a result of this combination is also having a greater penetration. Second, it will have a greater bond strength due to greater S character. Third is the bond length, which is shorter due to greater S character. Now here is a very important conclusion of this electronegativity. We know that sp is having the highest S character, which is 50%. Then comes your sp2, which is 33.33, and lastly your sp3, which is 25%. Therefore, sp hybridized carbon will have the greatest electronegativity, then comes your sp2, and lastly comes your sp3. So this was all for today's lecture. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you.